Today I'm going to show you how to make a full-size whiskey barrel out of foam, like this stuff. Love working it, easy to cut, easy to put together. As a matter of fact, good old Sparky's whole head here is made out of foam, covered in spandex, so really easy stuff. What you're going to want to buy to start this project is a sheet of 1 inch. I think, if you can get a 4x4 sheet, that'll be fine, but you'll probably have to buy it at the 8x4. And then you're going to need an 8x4 sheet of 1/2 inch. Both of these 8x4 sheets run somewhere just a little more than $10 a sheet. Full-size barrel is going to be about 3 foot high. The diameter at the top and bottom are going to be 22 inches. And then the diameter around the middle is generally about 28 inches. So what we're going to need is some circles that are going to go inside the barrel. So we're going to need 2 circles with a diameter of 21 inches to account for the skin. That's why it's 1 inch less. And then we're going to need 2 circles of 27 inch diameter. That counts down to 10.5 inches radius and a 13.5 inches radius. To draw my circle on the foam, I have a tool I kind of made. There's other tools, other people have different ways, whatever you want to draw a circle. I should mention I'm drawing these circles on the 1 inch. So this is the 1 inch, and basically we're going to have the 2 small circles will be the top and bottom, and the bigger circles will be inside. So here's my tool I was just describing. I'm going to go ahead and put my pencil in the loop here, and we're just going to make the circle. Alright, now you're going to use what's most people call it like a drywall saw. It's a little saw here, and it's made so that you can cut in a curve or cut corners really easy. So we're going to cut our 4 circles out. I've positioned the smaller circles and then the larger circles opposite each other, so they should all fit on a 4x4 piece. You want to cut the outsides first before you start cutting the insides. It's just easier. Okay, we've got our 4 circles cut out, and we're ready to move on to cutting out supports that are basically going to suspend these circles above and below each other, and we're going to be cutting that out of the 1/2 inch. As I cut out of the 1/2 inch here, I have to remember to save enough for the planks of the sidewalls of the barrel. So I already know from experience that although the barrel is 3 foot high, when you bow these sidewalls, they're actually going to grow to about 37 inches. So what I'm going to start doing here is measuring every so often here and marking off my 37 inches down the whole length of the 8 feet of the board. I got all my marks, so I'm just going to score them out with a pencil here. Alright, now that I have my line all at 37 inches, I'm going to come back with a razor blade, and we're going to cut the board. Of course, if you're familiar with foam board, you're not really going to cut all the way through. You're just going to cut enough that we can then break a nice straight cut into the board. I made a cut the full length of the board. I'm going to line it up on the edge of my table here, and we're just going to break it off. What I'm noticing is that this foam board has a coating on it that's not allowing me to break it off. So I don't want this coating anyway because it won't take paint. So I'm just going to peel it off. So now I have basically the part of the board that I have available to me to make the structure out of. Alright, so essentially here's a side view of our barrel, and these are the circles we just cut out. So we got the little one at the top and bottom and the bigger one in the middle. What we're going to do is put structure in between each row or circle here, and to make our barrel 3 foot high and to accommodate for the inch thickness and such, I know that my spacers in here need to be 11 inches and my spacers in here and here need to be 10.5 inches. So what I'm going to want to do now is I'm going to want to cut 2 of each one. So we're going to go ahead and measure out, and we're going to measure out, I need 2 of the 11 and I'm going to need 4 then of the 10.5. Remember, when using a square, always use the manufactured edge, as it's a lot square or a lot more square than your edge would be. So now that I got this nice metal ruler, I'm just going to score it right along the thing here. For the internal section here, we're going to work on the middle here. And so I got my 2 11-inch ones. I don't care how wide they are, but they're 11-inch long. I want to just break them in half somehow. It doesn't have to be exact, so I'm just going to estimate right here. I'm just going to go ahead and score it. It's easy to do a straight line because I can kind of see there's a groove in the pattern. Now, because of that plastic on here, I'm just going to let that plastic on these pieces because this is actually going to help me. So if they break all the way, that's fine. But essentially you want to do this with both of yours. I want to make sure I got my 11 inches, about half somewhere. Score it, we're going to break it, but we're going to let that plastic go ahead and keep me together. So what we have here is the 2 boards we just broke sitting on one of the bigger circles, and this is the position we're going to glue them, and then what we're going to do is glue the other big circle on top here. Now, lots of people use all kinds of stuff to glue foam board. I use 2 things, you'll see the other later, but one of the things I use is an actual adhesive specifically for foam board. This is the PL line, Liquid Nails. Also has one, it's called Projects, but then it mentions foam board adhesive. You want something that mentions foam board because some of the other adhesives will actually melt foam board, and you don't want that. So we're going to use this. What's nice about these 2 is they have a long drying time. I usually give them 24 hours. So that gives you time to move things around and get them into the right position, not that you put it up there and then you're stuck. So you want to put these things, here's my center, here's my edge. I've been putting them so that the corner I made is about halfway. And again, the measuring here is not exact, and it doesn't really matter. If you're anal retentive, you can go ahead and measure it out. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and add the bead on the top so we can put the top one on. Now, I mean, yeah, it doesn't dry right away, but you want to try to get it lined up as best you can. So the way I'm going to do that is actually with my square here, just so I can line it up a little bit. Before I press down, I'm going to do that square trick on all the sides, and see here, I was off about an inch. Looking good there. So I'm looking good now. So what I'm going to do is, everything's looking good under here. I'm going to press down a little bit just to set it. Alright, so now, I mean, it's not dry, it's still wet, we got to be careful, but we're going to go ahead and do the next layer. For placement of the upper structure, so I've already taken and bent or broke my 10.5, two of my 10.5s. To make this a little bit stronger even, notice on the bottom here where I've placed them, I'm going to place the next layer of structures opposite of those. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 3 inches from there. 3 inches from the edge. 3 inches from the edge. Again, we don't need to be exact. I'm marking them because I'm going to want these to be about halfway from the middle to the edge. So I've already put these in place. I have my bead of adhesive up there ready to go. The way we're going to put this one on is it's got to be centered, but it's not the same size as the one underneath it. So what we're going to do is, remember we got our little marks of 3 inches. I'm going to go ahead and put my level there. I'm going to try to eye it up and try to get it as centered as possible. I can then check each side. We're good and centered. And I'm going to go ahead and put some weight on here and press it down. Now you got to remember, you probably saw it moving a little bit, but our bottom is still wet, so we still have to respect that as we're working with this. That in mind, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over now so we can do the front, or do the other top. I'm going to go ahead and put my hand in the middle of the two ends and flick so nothing moves. And now I'm ready to put the other top on, just like we just did. And there we have our inner workings of our barrel. What I like to do is, I got a ½ gallon of something here. I'm just going to add a little weight to the top. You want to make sure this is stable, because with that on top, it is top heavy essentially. If you don't get that centered, or if some of your kids come running through here now, this would easily tip over. So you just want to make sure it's in a place by itself, so that you can go ahead and let it dry like this. Some of these foam board glues require a good 24 hours to be solid, but that's okay because we got a lot of other things to do. If I didn't mention, making the planks of the barrel is the hardest part of the project. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that while we wait for this to dry. If you remember, this is our ½ inch here, and we've already cut some off. We should have 37 inches across here. And what you want to do is, we're going to make our planks 4 inches wide. So what you want to do is just go ahead and, this doesn't have to be super exact, but you want it close. So what you want to do is just mark every 4 inch interval, and what we're going to need is 21 planks. So you want to mark out to, I guess that would be 84. So we want to mark out to 84 inches, and we just want to mark every 4 inch here. And you're going to want to do this on both sides. So just going to finish up one here. Alright, recall on our half sheet, at least the one I bought, had this plastic film on it. I've removed the plastic film from both sides, so that's not going to get in my way here. What you want to do is, I have a metal level here, so I'm just going to go ahead with my razor blade and just go ahead and score it along the level. If you can use any straight edge, but if you're going to cut with it, you know, you got to have metal. Don't use it with a wood one. If you don't have something long and metal, straight edge to do this with, you can draw it with a pencil too, and then come back and cut it if you want to. So we're going to cut it. And then what you want to do is have it over a like table here or something, and you just want to break it up. And there's one of our planks. Do that 21 times. And I'm on my last plank here. 21 planks. Now make sure you do not throw this piece away. What's going to happen is we're going to put these planks in the barrel and we're going to have a small gap. So the last plank we're going to basically have to custom make to fit whatever our gap is, and it's usually less, you know, it's going to be less than the width of one of these. So we're going to save this for later. Alright, now we're on to the hardest and most grueling part of this project. The problem with these planks is they're square, or you know, they got right angle corners. On a barrel, because it's curved, the diameter, of course the circumference of the top of the barrel is different than the middle of the barrel. So what we want is a shape kind of like this. So actually it's smaller on the ends than it is here, and it needs to be a nice curve. So it's not even an angle, it's a really gradual curve. Now in real barrel making, they got a machine that they just put the thing against and it's all ready to go and it gets it perfect. We don't have a machine. So what we're going to do, and what I highly advise you do, is to make a little rig that's going to help us. So I have these two pieces here, and essentially what's going to happen, I do about 5 at a time. I've done more, but the quality suffers. And what we're going to do is get 5 of them, get them all lined up, and then we're going to take these and we're going to put them along the edge. The edge on my left here, we're going to line up with the top of the bundle here. And on the end here, I'm going to have a difference of about 7/16. What's going to happen next is I'm going to clamp these things, and then what I'm going to do is take this saw, or keyhole or drywall saw here, and I'm going to just cut along the curvature of the wood to get our right curve. Now, what I'm going to go into next here first is how do I make these, right? So let me talk about that. All right, here's how I made my jig here. So I have 2 slats, just normal slats. They're stuck in the vise. I've clamped on here a piece of wire. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the wire is actually from one of these cable marking flags that they used on my lawn. What you want to do is, you can use anything, but you want something that wants to be straight, wants to retain its shape. Then what you're going to do is use your measuring device, and you want to have this end be 7/16 from the top, from the edge there. Once you have that, I'm going to kind of go along the edge here and hold it down, and essentially then I'm going to mark it with my pencil. You want to mark it all the way along there. Now that should give you a very slight curve. I should mention too, I have it clamped down here at the halfway point. So this is 18.5 inches to be half of our 37. And then you're going to want it to extend past there just because you want to have enough to work with. So now what you do now is go ahead and take a jigsaw. Maybe you want to clamp these together a little more. Take a jigsaw and follow along that line. Just know that as you get close to the halfway here, you know, you're no longer going to be able to cut because it's just so thin. So you just get it rounded as best as you can, and that's how I made my 2 pieces. It's important to do them at the same time because you want the pieces to be exact for what we're doing. So that's how I made my jig. You're going to want to make something because cutting those by hand otherwise are going to be even worse than they are. Alright, we're ready to do another batch 5 here. You can see my jig's already in place. Got a clamp here at the upper end, and basically the jig is even with the top of the boards. And then we have our jig clamped at the other end here, and it is 7/16 from the top of our plank boards. With styrofoam, there's no even cuts always, so you just gotta approximate. This is also a good opportunity that if you did cut one of these a little wrong, or maybe it broke like here. This one's a little high. We're gonna fix all that. So what you're gonna wanna do with your saw now is just start halfway and just start working across. And at first you're not gonna be cutting anything or very little, but eventually as our jig curve dives down into it, we're going to cut off more and more. Just want to make sure you try to get it smooth. Try to stay, even on that board, the jig board. And you want to make sure both sides, the saw's hitting both sides of the jig, so that way all the boards will have the same cut. And there you go, a nice edge. Take our clamps off here. And now we have that nice curved edge. Now we got to do that 4 times for each group of 5. So we're just going to flip it over, even up our boards here, and do it all over. Alright, I'm ready for my last cut on my planks. I'm doing a batch of 6 here because I had 21 planks, which wasn't easily divisible by 5. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this batch of 6. Alright, we are ready for the next phase of this project. Now we've come to the fun part of the project where we actually get to put our planks on and see this thing come together. On these planks, on the 2 ends, one of the ends is a factory end. It's untouched by us. And the other end is where we had cut it to 37 inches. When you're putting together the barrel, you're going to want the factory end down on the table. And this is just to help us square up the board. We know that for sure that the factory end is perpendicular to the, how we want our plank. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get a nice long piece of blue painter's tape here, and I'm going to put it on the end of my plank and push that down there. Then on the bottom of the other side of it, we're going to go ahead and put a nice big splotch of hot glue here. Now, I don't use hot glue for everything on this because it does not always have the strongest hold for this pink plastic stuff. So I go ahead and I got the glue down here now, and I got it flush with the table, and I'm putting it in. Now remember, this is curved. We're putting on a straight surface, so you just kind of want to center it on that surface as much as possible. Then what we're going to do is take our tape here and just, you don't need to put it down very hard, just enough to hold it. We just want to hold the plank in this position, make sure the bottom's down here. What happens because we use so much glue and because this is insulation, the glue actually takes quite a bit to cool down and get, make it hard and sticky. So we're going to want to go on now to the next plank, but we want to be careful now that we don't bump that. So now we can just go down the line. I got another plank ready to go. Here's my factory edge. Now what you want to do is when you're placing it on, you want to put it right next to that other board on the bottom of the table there. And we'll put this down. And we're going to check this, make sure we're butted up against the other board. Flush on the table, everything's looking great. And now we just need to do this a total of 21 times. Alright, here you can see I'm quickly working around the barrel. A couple of notes. Don't spin the barrel as you're working on it. Again, the hot glue takes quite a bit of time to dry. And so the previous plank is loose, and so are several others along the line. And so what I've found is if I rotate or twist the barrel, I start moving these things. And you know, if they move a little bit, that's fine because you still have time to get them in place. We're using hot glue here because I want it to dry a little faster than the foam adhesive. And it doesn't have to be strong. We'll see why in a little bit. Okay, I'm filming again here. I got my last full plank that we're putting in. Alright, so you can see I have about an inch gap here, although that gap's bigger up here. So what we're going to want to do here is, one of the next steps we have is we're going to put our bottom band on to hold all this that we just glued. We want to wait until the glue cools a little bit, and that's just 5 or 10 minutes. But before I can put that in there, I have to put this plank in. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some estimating and cut that plank out. It looks like, well, at the ends here the plank might be an inch and an eighth, but we really want to measure for the wider gap up here, which is about an inch and 3/8. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a plank an inch and 3/8 wide, and we'll start fitting it for this gap. Well, this one you got to be careful when you're breaking it off because it's little, and you could inadvertently break it and break it off not at your score mark. So just take it slow. What we're going to have to do with this, and even it looks like even an inch and 3/8 might have been, well, it looks like it might fit in there. But definitely the ends are going to be too big. Now, I can't use my little jig on these because the curvature is not going to be the same. So what you're going to want to do is just look and see how much you got to cut off, and then just start cutting it off. Okay, the little plank goes in the same way as the big ones did, so alright, the next step, you're going to need black duct tape, and we're going to put the duct tape around the bottom, but we want to first clean up around here and get all our dust and foam out of the way so that it doesn't stick in the duct tape. Any tape will do, but you want it to be black because this is actually going to go unpainted, and these will be on the barrel, the metal bands, or it will appear that way. So what you want to do is get a very big piece of duct tape, and I'm going to start with the plank I did first, because the rest of these planks are probably still drying a little bit. And what you want to do is just set it on the table, level with the table, and then let it attach to the barrel. Now what this means is that the bottom of the tape kind of is wrinkling up or not all the way on the barrel. That's okay. Because it's a curved surface, you're not going to be able to get the duct tape to flatten out on it. So I just keep it level with the table and go around, and then what we're going to do later is press all this down. Okay, I've worked my tape all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. This is my little baby plank there. Just want to keep coming around here, match with your previous tape there. Alright, so now that we've done that, we can come and kind of pat down and smooth out these wrinkles. And you're going to have wrinkles, and that's okay. You know, this is a prop. It'll look fine up on stage or maybe on your Halloween display. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put the planks in place, and you want to start with you know, the plank next to your baby plank. You want to make sure you do this little, you know, custom fit baby plank all by, you know, you want that to be at the end. You want to do that at the end because if we have to adjust it more, we can. The other important thing here is that don't just start ripping this tape off, because we're actually going to reuse it when we have to put it up against the end here. So we're going to be using both adhesives on this step. So I got my glue gun, and then I have my foam board adhesive. So I'm just going to remove the tape, and then at this point what you want to do is grab your foam board adhesive, and you're going to pull the plank back, you know, don't break it, and you're just going to apply a bead on that internal rim, and you want to hit both of them. It don't have to be much, you know. And then what you're going to do, grab your glue gun, and on the top rim, you're going to put a splotch of glue again. However, this time, I've been making a line of glue across the very top edge, because that's the edge. Make contact with the board, and we want to make sure we hit it. And then we're going to reuse our tape here. So we just put our board up against it, and then use the tape to hold that board in place, because, you know, none of these glues are ready to dry. So yeah, that's looking great. All right, so go ahead and do the next one here. Again, when you put that second plank, you want to try to butt it. You want to butt it up against the other plank here. Okay, I'm down to the last two planks here. Glue anything here, we want to make sure he fits. And what I'm finding out is he's going to be too tight at the top. So what you want to do is grab your knife, and we're going to slim him down a little bit and move the tape, but I'm going to keep the tape because I'm going to need it here. So now I can go ahead and put my final glue in. And there we have it. Alright, so what we're going to do is put this band on here. You know, you can see the barrel has some, you can see the cracks, and you can kind of see in there where the that internal rim is. So what we want to do is follow that tape right on that internal rim. And again, we're dealing with an unflat surface. Alright, now what you can do is like we did before, we really want to smooth it out. If there's any wrinkles, that's okay. We just want to smooth down the wrinkles. Alright, we're going to go ahead and do the next one, the upper one now too. To put the final band on, you want to do it with the barrel upside down. It's much easier. So by now I've given enough time and I can kind of feel it in there. Our hot glue is all dry, so we can go ahead and take our tape off. Now at this point, depending on how things went, you might have some of the planks coming above the top of the lid. In my case, that's mostly because if you look over here, I'm a little short. What probably happened is when I glued this top lid, it wasn't quite level. or maybe it got bumped or just the way it dried, I don't know. But that's okay. So what I'm going to do is grab my saw. And we're going to just go ahead and come around here, and anywhere that's higher we're going to cut off. You want to be very careful not to rough up your barrel top. At this point, putting the last band on just like I was putting the first band on. Alright, we're ready to put some final touches on this, and a barrel will typically have planks that make the top of it. So, they're not always centered or anything, so the first plank I'm just going to put here, it's not centered. And then what you want to do is make it every 4 inches. So I'm just going to mark here, here, and here. And then I'm just going to eye it, make sure they look parallel. Alright, to actually make, because we're going to paint this and I want the cracks to be seen, so we're going to go ahead and widen them now with just an old soldering iron I have for this kind of stuff. You know, you're going to be melting this. Don't breathe the fumes, okay? Do this in a well-ventilated area. And you can move pretty fast. And there we have our 55-gallon old barrel, and barrel, you know, to use as our prop. Now, a couple of things you can do and some paint suggestions here. So, what my friend did to paint this, and I'll put a picture on the video as well, but you can see it. She basically painted it all brown, and the brown will cover up any markings on the foam board as well. And then she went back and put like a black wash, you know, and you could get as fancy with the wash as you want. You could put kind of the you know, the layers of the wood or the grain of the wood in there if you wanted. You could also put, if you want this barrel to be like an ancient barrel that you found somewhere, you could take the soldering iron and actually cut little grooves in if you wanted to. But you know, a new working order barrel would have a smooth surface. So some other things you could do too, I'm not going to do, but if you want to, every old barrel has a bung hole. Yes, that's what it's called. But you know, you could find one of the wide planks and just cut a circle out of foam, glue that on, and that would make an excellent bung hole. The other thing you could do is you can use your leftover parts and make a tap as well if you wanted, so that if your barrel was displayed laying on the side, maybe in a bar scene or something, you could put a tap into this. It wouldn't be very hard to make at all. So, oh well, I hope you enjoyed this. I kind of made the video because I didn't see any good videos out there describing this process. This process is kind of a mix of other processes that are out there. So, hope you enjoyed it.